This is kind of a dicey review, guys, because this is one of those books that have a lot of shoes to drop. Welcome to Talking Story. My name is John Minton. I'm so happy you're joining me because I've got a review today of, he's become one of my favorite authors. I just did a vampire list and his trilogy was absolutely on it. I'm talking about Justin Cronin. He did a trilogy starting with The Passage. The middle book is The 12, and then City of Mirrors wraps it up. And it was a really, really great trilogy. It kind of made me feel like I would run out day one and pick up whatever book that he would come out with next. Now, the next book he comes out with after this trilogy is something that I hear is sci-fi, so I am intrigued. I can't wait to get going on it, and I pick it up. I pre-ordered actually, and so I can get a signed copy, and pick up the Ferryman, and I'm here with a full review of it today. And it was, spoiler, really great. Just like always, my reviews work on a 5-category system. We're going to go over world building, plot, character, pace, and prose. Every category can get a quarter star to a full star. We're going to add all that up at the end, and that will be what I felt about or the score of the book. Okay, so let's jump right in with world building. Now, this is kind of a dicey review, guys, because this is one of those books that have a lot of shoes to drop. So I don't want to get too far into anything. So I'm going to kind of describe things up to a point. World building here, I thought it was wonderful. It's familiar in a way that most sci-fi fans would recognize right away. If you're familiar at all with Logan's Run by William F. Nolan and George Clayton, the world building here is like this beautiful island setting. It's a group of 3 islands, one beautiful island, one off that's called the nursery, and then a 3rd island that's called the annex. Life on this island is idyllic. You've hit the lottery. There's a little bit of talk about the horrors before. You're not quite sure how these survivors got here, what the apocalypse was, or what brought it about. But this existence is absolutely idyllic. Everyone has a type of readout in their arm that your health can get a numerical value. And when it drops to a certain level, you're taken from the main island to the nursery. And you're kind of reborn and you get to have another life. It's just life after life after life of an idyllic setting. And then over on the annex is basically where the support staff lives. Life isn't quite as idyllic. And they come back and forth to the island to pamper and take care of the people that live on the main island. So it's everything is very familiar. Right down to the strife and the stress of the haves and the have-nots and the ever-growing, broadening chasm between those two and the unrest that causes. So it's extremely, extremely topical of what's going on in our real world. So you can absolutely grab onto it. You can absolutely understand it. He does a great job. And when I say world building, he does a great job of making something that you can absolutely digest and understand, because this is the world until it's not. There are shoes to drop, and that's as far as I'm going to go. But what I love about the world building is it starts in a way that is so absolutely digestible and familiar that you're so on board with it to where when it does go with the higher concept things, you're right there with it. It's that same kind of trick that George R.R. Martin played with people that aren't fantasy fans. I'm just in for the characters. I'm just in for this political intrigue. And then, well, there's dragons. Yeah, sure. Okay, there's dragons. I'm in. And same thing here that Justin Cronin does. You're into this social, aware, topical world that he's created, as above, so below, and the strife that it's causing, and it's all very familiar, and you're very intrigued, and you're absolutely in it. And then some higher concept things come your way, which is the case in a lot of sci-fi, and you absolutely go right along with it. So world building, guys, I have to go a full star. He didn't create a world from wholesale cloth. A lot of it is familiar, and that's for a purpose, because the world is the world until it's a different world. And that's all I'm going to say. So 1 full star. Well, let's go into plot, guys. Again, I have to tiptoe and be very careful here. The plot deals with, again, these idyllic settings and these 3 islands, and it starts off with a woman that her readout is starting to get a little low, and she takes a rowboat and she goes out and she ties herself to an anchor and throws herself over. So right away, you're intrigued and you understand not everything's not rosy in this idyllic world. There are cracks in the veneer, and the plot is, of course, goes on. What happens at the nursery when you are retired and brought back? How much is bleeding over from one life to the next? What about the social strata that's here and the unrest that's fermenting just under the surface of this island? And this is as much of the plot as I'm comfortable to go into. On its face, that would be enough. It would be a great allegory for our modern world and the things we're struggling with. And I was absolutely intrigued. But there is, as is the case in the real world, there is way, way more going on with the plot when all those shoes start to drop. And he does a great job of building up to the point where, as an author, he's going to ask you, do you really want to know what's happening? You really want to know what's happening? I'll give you the blue, the red pill. I'll give you that choice. You can keep going. And by then, you're so desperate to know what's happening that you realize that you're completely wrapped up into this plot. So plot, and another thing I will say about the plot, it's very well crafted in that all of the hints are there. And I've been reading for a lot of years, guys, taking in story for a lot of years. I kind of had an inkling of where this is going, but not until very late in the game. Early on, I had a lot of theories, but they were just that, theories. And when he completely pulled the veil back, if I had an inkling, it was not very before the time when he revealed. So kudos to him. And then when I thought, looking back over what I had been reading, it's like, wow, all the hints were there. He did construct it just right to where I can't call foul at the big reveal. I can't say he didn't earn it, because absolutely Mr. Cronin laid every breadcrumb that he would need to lay. There's more going on here. What's up with these weather patterns? What's up with, I started asking questions like, this idyllic island, they're driving cars. How did they get cars? How did they get gas? I understand there was horrors. Like, where are these things coming from? How would they manufacture? And you have all these questions, and it's like, I don't. Is he gonna pull this off? Is he gonna earn all these leaps that he's gonna take when he reveals everything? And he absolutely does. He methodically constructs it to where by the end you will have no questions. So plot, I'm gonna go again a full star. Moving into characters. A lot of it revolves around the main character of Proctor Bennett. Proctor Bennett, I absolutely connect with in that way. To me, it was like reading Proctor Bennett was much like listening to that Talking Head song. As you know, this is not my life. How did I get here? How did I get here? Is this all there is? What's beyond this? I have questions. And as he moves on now. Proctor is a ferryman. So it's his job when somebody retires to escort them to the ferry that would take them to the nursery, and they would be reborn and then brought back as a ward for someone, because apparently childbirth doesn't really happen. You accept a ward and a child. And so he makes sure that they get on the ferry and that their feathers are as unruffled as they possibly can be. And this is his job as the ferryman. So he is already kind of a spiritual job. So he's having these questions about what's going on around him, and is this all that life is? And then you come to find out the person in the beginning that threw themselves over was his mother. He was her ward, and it just starts to build layer upon layer and upon layer. And it is his wife, Elise, starts to come in, and all the characters are absolutely believable, absolutely multifaceted, absolutely have oftentimes a pragmatic life going on, an emotional life going on. They're carrying trauma, whether they know where it came from or not. All this is very well layered in to make an absolutely three-dimensional person. I will say the most realized for me was Proctor Bennett, his wife Elise, the friend he meets, Theo moving forward. They're absolutely critical, and the more you branch out from Proctor Bennett, the more it becomes a maelstrom moving around him. He is the emotional center, and he is the story everything revolves around. That he is he's the lightning rod that I connected with. I'm not to say these other characters weren't as three-dimensional. I feel they were, but you just don't get to spend enough time with them. You're really keyed into Proctor, and for me that works because we were both guys of a certain age. We both kind of have the same questions. So it really worked for me. It really connected. I do have to say, character, again, I'm going to have to go a full star. Is this going to be a 5-star book? There's 2 categories left. We're already at 3 full stars. Next coming up would be pace. Pace, guys, now this is where I'm going to have to take a little chunk out. And pace, because this happened to me while reading the book. I'm in it. And there was one point I said, man, he better reveal what's going on. And for that moment, I was out of the book. I feel it went a little long for me before the shoes started dropping and before everything started coming together. He absolutely earned it. I was absolutely in all the story that was happening, this growing unrest and these strange weather patterns happening on the island, and where does it all come from? And I was absolutely involved, but there's always these hints and these feelings coming up that this is not all there is. There is something else to this world. And you get further into the book and further into the book and further into the book. And it's like, for me, I had to come out of the book at that one moment and go, wow, I'm pretty far in here. It seems like something should have been revealed by now. And for that moment, being out of the book, I will have to just take a 1/4 star off. So for pace, I'm going to have to go 3/4 stars. Now, I will say, right after that moment where I was out of the book, the shoes start to fall. And things start to happen, and you're like, whoa, this is the payoff I've been waiting for. So it was almost perfectly paced. He almost had me, but there was just that one moment where I had to ask that question of, oh gosh, what's going on? I hope there's enough pages left in this book. And there were. But 3/4 star for pace because of that one moment where I did come out of the book. That only leaves us with prose, guys. Prose, obviously, if there was a reason, he is now an author that I grab day one, regardless of what type of release it is. I have to connect with the prose. This is no exception. He does such an amazing, beautiful job of wordsmithing. There's some beautiful passages that I had to read a couple times. There is a true spiritual element to the book. There is, in true science fiction, there's some big questions because we can do something through science. Should we? What type of gods will we really be if we cannot outrun our trauma? And how will that weigh on the creations that we create? What is there? How have we pushed ourselves in modern society? Can we get out of it? Is it possible? The have and have-nots, the bill coming due with those that have broadened this gulf between those that have and those that do not. That bill coming due, how severe should that be? There's a moral question there. All of these large questions about humanity and ourselves that sometimes can be asked with that great social mirror that science fiction can hold up, they were asked in a beautiful way. The prose was just top-notch. Now, I will say one thing. There are 2 different styles in the same book. Many of the chapters, or all of the chapters that revolve around Proctor Bennett, are in the first person. When it's not Proctor, when it's in the larger scheme of what's going on the island, or later in the book, other things, it becomes third person. I absolutely bet you $1 million Mr. Cronin probably took points off for one of his students doing that same kind of thing and changing those types of points of view in the same story or the same book. I understand now, I'm a big proponent of an artist, if they understand a rule, they can break that rule for effect. I understand why he broke that rule. There's shoes to drop. There's reveals to be made. If everything was first person, these other characters around would have an inner monologue and we would understand more than the storyteller wants us to understand. Also, I really found it to be like a great filmmaker using different lenses. When we were with Proctor, again, I connected so well with him. It was such a personal interior narrative that grounded me. And then when you got into the larger happenings around these islands that I described and the political and social strife going on, and the questions of rebirth and new lives happening over again. Now these broadened in scope with a broader lens. It almost felt like it went to IMAX when you were dealing with more people. But when you were dealing with Proctor Bennett, you were really so personal, so narrowed down in scope. And it worked absolutely. It was like a great filmmaker using different lenses. And as well, just well enough to hide the truth for as long as the writer wanted us to by using those 2 points of view. So am I going to take points off? Like I'm sure Mr. Cronin has taken points off from his own students for doing this kind of thing? No, I'm not. The wordsmithing is beautiful. I had to go back and read passages again. He absolutely understands the rule he's breaking. He breaks it for wonderful effect. You don't see the big reveals coming, and when they do, they are so satisfying on that grand science fiction way that only they can broaden things out and make us really wonder about our place in the universe and our place in interpersonal relationships with each other. Just wonderful. Absolutely full star for prose, even though he broke a rule. So let's add all that up, guys. That gets us to 4.75, just a hair under a 5-star book. And that was just for that little hiccup in pace for me personally. So a 4.75, that means stop everything, get this book. If you have not read Justin Cronin's Vampire Trilogy, buy those as well. This is an author you should absolutely be following. This is an author you should absolutely be excited when they have a new book come out. Thank you so much for joining me here on Talking Story today and listening in while I talk about Justin Cronin's The Ferryman. If you've read it, let me know what you thought of it. If it's on your TBR, move it to the top. Like, subscribe. You never know. You may want to come back and spend some time with me again. And like I always say, you don't have to pick up The Ferryman, but pick up and read something. Thanks so much for joining me on Talking Story. Now's the time on the channel. I always go to a spoilery section, but I'm not going to do that because even the people that have read that, I'm just not even going to put that out there. The reveals are so amazing. I'm not even going to do a spoiler section. It's the first time ever in this young channel. I'm not even going to say out loud some of these awesome reveals that come up in this book. So that's it for me, guys. See you soon.